In 1970, psychologist Abraham Maslow turned his attention to a question few dare to ask. What does it truly mean to fulfill your potential? Not in theory, but in practice. He studied the lives of those who had walked that path. Not just with success, but with purpose, clarity, and a deep sense of inner freedom. Among them were names that shaped history: Baruch Spinoza, Thomas Jefferson, Abraham Lincoln, Jane Addams, Albert Einstein, Eleanor Roosevelt. What united them? They were different in talent, background, and circumstance. Yet Maslow discovered striking similarities in how they thought, felt, and lived. They weren't perfect, far from it. But they had tapped into something most people spend a lifetime chasing: the realization of the self. This video is a journey into the common traits Maslow uncovered. Traits that may hold the blueprint for a life fully lived. Not just admired by others, but deeply aligned with who you are meant to be. Are you ready to find out what they had? And how you might already carry it within you? Stability in chaos. The art of standing tall when the ground shakes. One of the most remarkable qualities Maslow observed in self-actualized individuals was their ability to remain centered in chaos. When everything around them was uncertain, politically, socially, even personally, they didn't collapse. They adapted. They acted. These people weren't fearless. They felt the same anxiety, doubt, and pressure we all do. But they had learned to breathe through the storm, to move forward even when the path was unclear. Instead of waiting for conditions to be perfect, they made decisions in imperfect moments. They understood that life rarely offers ideal circumstances, and that power lies in responding, not in controlling. This is what separates the fulfilled from the frustrated. While most people seek comfort zones and predictable outcomes, those who grow into their full potential develop a strange kind of inner stillness. Not because life is calm, but because they are. They embrace complexity. They learn from failure. They don't run from the unknown. They build within it. It's a powerful reminder that greatness isn't born in comfort. It's forged in discomfort. In the tough conversations, the hard decisions, the uncertain crossroads. And maybe the real question isn't whether the world will ever be stable. Maybe the real question is, can you learn to be stable within it? The spark within. Why self-actualized people embrace spontaneity. There's something electric about those who have fully come into themselves. A kind of creative spark that dances just beneath the surface. They don't wait for permission. They don't rely on routines to feel alive. Instead, they follow the whisper of inspiration wherever it calls them, even if it makes no sense at first. Maslow noticed that self-actualized individuals often displayed spontaneous behavior and thinking, but not the kind of spontaneity rooted in chaos or recklessness. No, theirs was purposeful spontaneity, a readiness to act on intuition, to pursue ideas the moment they arise, to initiate change instead of fearing it. They live in a constant dance between structure and surprise. Most of us are trained to suppress our impulses. We second-guess, overthink, hesitate. But these people, they trust themselves. They know that some of life's greatest moments, a groundbreaking discovery, a new friendship, a shift in perspective, don't come from plans, but from openings. Tiny windows of possibility that vanish if we don't leap. And here's the deeper truth. Spontaneity is not about being impulsive. It's about being fully present. When you're connected to your inner world, you respond to the outer world with clarity and courage. That sudden idea, it's not a distraction. It might be a doorway. So the next time you feel a pull to try something new, say something bold, or step off the well-worn path, remember, it's not a detour. It might be the first step to becoming who you really are. Purpose over ego, the shift that changes everything. One of the most striking traits Maslow identified in those who fully realized their potential was this: they cared more about the problem than their own position in it. In a world obsessed with self-image, credit, and recognition, these individuals were different. They didn't ask, "How does this benefit me?" They asked, "What is the right thing to do here?" Their energy was directed not towards self-promotion, but towards service, solving real problems, addressing deep needs, healing invisible wounds. This doesn't mean they were selfless martyrs. On the contrary, they had a strong sense of self. But their ego wasn't the driver. It was the instrument. Their attention was fixed outward. On the work, the people, the mission, they were used by purpose rather than using it as a branding tool. And here's the paradox. The more they forgot themselves, the more they found fulfillment. Because when you stop asking, "How do I look?" and start asking, "What needs to be done?" something shifts. You stop living from insecurity and start living from integrity. This trait is especially rare in a time when visibility is mistaken for value. But ask yourself, what if your greatest breakthroughs in career, in creativity, in relationships aren't waiting at the end of some personal victory, but at the center of a problem that's bigger than you? To step into your full potential is to shift the question from "What do I want?" to "What is needed, and can I rise to meet it?" Because when your purpose becomes bigger than your pride, you become someone the world doesn't just notice. You become someone the world needs. The unexpected power of humor, lightness in a heavy world. It may surprise you, but one of the consistent traits found in people who realize their full potential is a good sense of humor. Not sarcasm, not the kind of humor that punches down, hides pain, or avoids truth, but real humor, the kind that reveals perspective, humility, and the ability to laugh at life's absurdity. Maslow noticed that these individuals didn't take themselves too seriously. They didn't cling to their image or status. They were willing to look foolish, to admit mistakes, to see irony where others only saw frustration. And this wasn't a weakness. It was a sign of strength. Think about it. To laugh, genuinely, in the middle of chaos, failure, or uncertainty requires emotional freedom. It shows that you're not trapped by your ego. You've made peace with imperfection. Self-actualized people use humor as a bridge. It connects people across barriers of culture, class, and fear. It disarms tension, invites trust, and reminds us that we are all human. Gloriously, hilariously, imperfectly human. And perhaps that's the hidden wisdom. If you can laugh, you can heal. If you can smile through setbacks, you can keep going. If you can make light of your own flaws, you rob them of their power. In a world heavy with pressure and pretense, the ability to laugh with grace is more than charm. It's resilience. So maybe true potential isn't found in constant seriousness. Maybe it lives in those small, unexpected moments when you allow yourself to be real, and in doing so, help others feel safe to do the same. Free thinkers, not rebels, the wisdom of independent minds. Another powerful trait Maslow observed in fully realized individuals was their deep intellectual independence. They weren't easily swayed by dogma, trends, or social pressure. But here's the subtlety. They weren't rebels for the sake of rebellion either. We often admire those who defy norms, the ones who shout the loudest, break all the rules, and reject everything traditional. But true self-actualization is more nuanced. It's not about opposing convention out of ego. It's about thinking clearly, authentically, freely. Sometimes that leads you to challenge the system. Other times, it leads you to respect something ancient and valuable. The key difference? Awareness. These individuals questioned everything, including their own assumptions. They didn't adopt beliefs just because others held them, nor did they reject ideas just because they were popular. They sought truth, not approval. Wisdom, not applause. And that's a rare kind of courage. The courage to live in the gray zone, to stand alone in thought, to change your mind when necessary, even at the cost of comfort. They didn't need to look different. They were different in how they processed the world. This kind of independence doesn't shout. It listens, it reflects, and when it speaks, it often reveals something others were too afraid to say. So the lesson is this: don't be afraid to think for yourself. But also, don't be afraid to agree when something resonates, even if it's old, simple, or unpopular. Because wisdom isn't found in blind rebellion. It's found in honest alignment, when your thoughts, values, and actions are your own. A heart beyond the self, the quiet force of compassion. One of the most beautiful patterns Maslow uncovered in people who fulfilled their potential was this: they genuinely cared about the well-being of humanity, not in a grandstanding, save the world kind of way, but in a steady, grounded, deeply human way. They carried within them a sense of responsibility, not just for their own success, but for the greater good. These individuals saw themselves as part of something larger. They didn't view their talents as trophies, but as tools, gifts to be used in service of others. Whether through science, leadership, art, or everyday interactions, they moved through the world with empathy. Not sentimentality, empathy, the ability to feel with others, not just for them. And this empathy wasn't abstract. It showed up in action, in standing up for the vulnerable, in creating systems that served rather than exploited, in lifting others, even when no one was watching. This kind of care isn't soft. It's fierce. It's the kind of compassion that chooses kindness even when it's hard, that refuses to dehumanize even enemies, that sees dignity, even in the overlooked, the misunderstood, the broken. To actualize your potential doesn't mean becoming invincible. It means becoming more deeply human. It means realizing that your highest self is not separated from others, but intertwined with their lives, their hopes, their suffering. And maybe that's the paradox of true power. The more fully you become yourself, the more naturally you begin to serve something greater than yourself. Seeing the whole picture, the depth of life experience. Another profound trait shared by self-actualized individuals is their ability to grasp the full complexity of life. They didn't just see events as isolated moments or people as flat labels. They had a gift, a kind of inner vision, that allowed them to perceive the deeper layers beneath the surface. They understood that joy and pain often live side by side, that success can come wrapped in failure, that people are never only good or bad, but a mosaic of contradictions shaped by history, wounds, and longing. Instead of rushing to judgment, they paused. They asked questions. They explored perspectives that weren't their own, not because they were indecisive, but because they valued depth over simplicity. They knew that truth is rarely black and white. It is usually found in the tension between opposing forces. This ability to hold complexity without collapsing into confusion is rare. Most people crave neat answers, clear sides, quick conclusions. But those who fulfill their potential develop a kind of emotional and intellectual spaciousness, a capacity to tolerate paradox and ambiguity without losing clarity or compassion. It's why they're often wise beyond their years, why their words carry weight, why people are drawn to their presence. Not because they have all the answers, but because they make room for the real questions. To realize your full self is not to control life. It is to embrace it, in all its messiness, beauty, heartbreak, and wonder. Because the more deeply you allow yourself to see, the more truth you're able to live. Depth over width, the power of meaningful connection. In an age obsessed with followers, likes, and digital networks, this truth may sound almost rebellious. Those who truly realize their potential don't crave many connections. They crave meaningful ones. Maslow observed that self-actualized individuals didn't scatter their emotional energy across endless social circles. Instead, they cultivated a small number of deep, intimate, soul-level relationships. They valued quality over quantity. They didn't fear solitude. They embraced it when needed. But they also cherished the rare few with whom they could share their truth, unmasked and unfiltered. Why does this matter? Because depth requires vulnerability. It demands presence. It asks you to show up, not as a curated version of yourself, but as you truly are. In shallow relationships, we hide behind roles. In real ones, we grow. We're challenged. We're softened. We're seen. Self-actualized people understood that real connection is sacred. They didn't force it. They didn't fake it. They waited. And when they found it, they nurtured it. They also didn't confuse connection with constant interaction. A meaningful friendship, to them, could be silent for months yet remain unbreakable. Because it wasn't about proximity, it was about resonance. And maybe that's a reminder for all of us. Your energy is precious. Your heart is not meant for endless casual contact. It is meant to root in people, in places, in truth. If you find even one relationship where you can be completely yourself and still be completely loved, you are already rich in ways most never experience. The mirror of truth. Why objectivity is a superpower. Among the most grounded qualities of people who fully realize their potential was a rare and powerful skill. They were objective, not cold but clear. They had the ability to step outside their own emotions, biases, and ego, and see reality for what it truly was. This didn't mean they were detached or indifferent. On the contrary, they felt deeply, but they didn't let those feelings distort the truth. They could observe themselves in motion, question their own thoughts, and admit when they were wrong, without collapsing into shame or defensiveness. In a world where people so often twist facts to fit feelings, or silence facts to protect pride, objectivity is a radical act. It requires courage to look at life as it is, not as we wish it to be, to confront uncomfortable truths without running, to accept feedback without crumbling, to recognize flaws, and still keep going. This trait gave self-actualized people an extraordinary advantage. They learned faster, they solved problems more effectively, and they built trust, because others sensed that their clarity wasn't driven by agenda, but by honesty. They also didn't get swept away by popular opinion. They saw through manipulation, resisted herd mentality, and made decisions from a place of awareness, not fear. And maybe that's the quiet power in all of this. The ability to witness your thoughts, your reactions, your world without distortion. To pause and ask, is this true or just familiar? To tell yourself the truth, even when it's inconvenient. Because objectivity isn't about being neutral, it's about being free. Now that we've walked through these powerful traits, a deeper truth emerges. Self-actualized people aren't born extraordinary. They become that way through awareness, intention, and the courage to live in alignment with their inner truth. They're not flawless. They stumble, they doubt, but they choose again and again to rise above fear, distraction, and ego, and to live a life of depth, purpose, and presence. And here's the most empowering part. These traits are not locked behind talent or status. They are available to you right now. Every time you choose honesty over comfort, curiosity over pride, connection over image, you take one step closer to the life you were born to live. So the question is no longer, are these traits possible for me? The question is, am I ready to live that fully? If this video sparked something in you, don't let it fade. Like, share, and subscribe, not just to support the channel, but to remind yourself, you're on the path. and the world needs more people who walk it with heart.